When everything's going well in your life and you're perfectly happy, has the thought ever occurred to you to cry out to Satan and say, my Satan, why have you abandoned me? Why are you allowing such good things to happen to me? Why are you allowing me to be so happy? Probably not. That thought probably has never occurred to you. But why is it then when we are overwhelmed by life, when we feel like God has given us too much to handle, when we're suffering and in pain, our first thought is to cry out to God and ask why He's allowing this, why He has abandoned us? If that question has never occurred to you before, it's because of the way that you're wired. In a way that's unique to our species. Nothing else in all the created order is wired this way. We human beings don't simply accept things the way they are. We don't simply say, it is what it is, and move on. But we constantly, relentlessly press on to the way things should be, the way we think things should be. And so we expect that things will work out in our lives to our good, always to our good. We expect that there will be a God, there should be a God out there who loves us and who will orchestrate everything so that we will be perfectly happy all the time. We don't protest when everything's going well because we're wired to expect that that's the way it should be. But when things aren't going well, when we suffer, we protest mightily. We question God's goodness, His love for us. We even question His existence. But have you ever thought how unnatural that is? I mean, everything that nature and history teaches us, everything in our accumulated human experience points to the fact that life is simply a mix, should be a mix of good and evil. That's simply the way things are. The only thing we have a right to expect is that we will experience good times and bad times, periods of intense happiness and periods of intense suffering. In fact, if history and nature teach us anything, if our accumulated experience teaches us anything, given the fact that they're so cruel and tragic, consistently cruel and tragic, it's that if there is a God out there, that God, that Creator, is completely indifferent to us. It's the only thing we have a right or reason to expect. And yet we don't. We expect God to be good. We expect that God will love us. Like the rest of creation, we should simply accept things the way they are and move on. We should say, it is what it is, and move on. But we don't. When things don't go well, when we suffer and experience pain, when things aren't the way we think they should be, we protest, we complain mightily. Like a hurt and wounded child, we cry out to God, how could you allow this to happen to me? How could you do this to me? But here's the stunning thing about all of that. Without some kind of transcendent awareness of a God who loves us, what philosophers and theologians call a pre-apprehension of a perfect reality that transcends our experience, without that awareness, the thought would never occur to us. The thought to protest would never occur to us. We would simply accept things the way they are and move on. We would say, it is what it is, and move on. The fact that we don't, the fact that we think things should be different, the fact that we feel so wounded by God when things don't go well in our lives, when everything doesn't work out, shows that reality exists. We wouldn't be wired this way unless that reality exists, as many of those philosophers and theologians have pointed out in many different ways. So when we suffer, when we experience pain, when we cry out because we feel wounded by a God who would allow us to experience things that in our heads shouldn't be, that aren't right, when all that happens, it's actually proof that God exists. It's proof that He loves you as His own precious and dear child. Of course, there are some philosophers who will protest this and say that the only reason we are wired this way is because of natural selection. It's an adaptive response. In next week's blog, I'll talk about how a philosopher, one of the most prominent philosophers of our time, who also happens to be an atheist, has responded to that by saying that explanation is completely inadequate. So what about you? Has this question ever occurred to you, why we protest when things are going bad, but we don't protest when things are going good? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. You can go to the Contact EJ page of the Raising Jesus website and leave them there. Also, if you haven't had a chance to yet, would you please like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel? Thank you.